Welcome to the P.A.S. Report podcast. If you're tired of censorship, outraged by government abuses, and thirsty for real insights, then you're in the right place. Get ready, because here, the fight for freedom never ends. Here's your host, Professor Nick Giordano.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the P.A.S. Report podcast. This is your host, Nick Giordano, and I'm glad you could join me today. If you're not already a subscriber, make sure to subscribe and follow the podcast so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to visit the PAS Report website, pasreport.com. You'll want to sign up for the newsletter and share this episode with others. We have to inform them what's going on. We have to inform the people of what's taking place because there's a lot of information the government isn't telling us, and that's what today's episode is about. It's especially pertinent since it comes right after Memorial Day as we honor those who paid the ultimate sacrifice for this country. I have some very alarming information, disturbing information to share with the American people that many of you may not be aware of. You know, something big is happening out there, and it's putting us all at risk. This administration's open border policy has allowed millions to enter the United States illegally. And by the end of President Biden's term, it's estimated that over 12 million people may have crossed the border unlawfully. 12 million. And the intent is clear. They don't hide it anymore, and I guess that's a good thing. But just take a listen to Senator Schumer, right? He's the Senate Majority Leader, the most powerful Democrat senator that exists. And he said the quiet part out loud the other day. He openly admits what the real intent of the open borders policy is. Take a listen.
Now more than ever, we're short of workers. We have a population that is not reproducing it on its own with the same level that it used to. The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers, and all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for all 11 million or however many undocumented there are.
As you can hear, their goal is clear. It's always been clear. It's always been about amnesty, not border security, and it's not about building a more robust legal immigration process that makes it more streamlined for those that we actually want here, for those that we need here in the United States, for those that actually contribute to make the United States a better place. But take the 11 million number. They've been using the figure of 11 million since 2006. They ignore the millions who have entered illegally since then. And we have the studies. A 2018 Yale and MIT study estimated that even before Biden's tenure, there were an estimated 22 to 28 million undocumented illegal immigrants in the United States. And now that number could be as high as 34 to 40 million with the additional that have come in under the Biden administration's open border policy. It's a massive influx. It's a deliberate attempt to shift power, but it comes at a steep price. And that's our national security. With such high numbers, it's impossible to vet every individual entering the country, and we know that some are coming into the United States with the intention to harm America, with the intention to harm American citizens. This administration has failed. They are derelict in their duty, and every day that goes by is another day that the threat worsens. It becomes more real. We have Customs and Border Protection reporting that since the administration took office, 367 individuals on the terror watch list have been arrested trying to enter the United States. Now, at least those individuals we actually caught. The real question is how many more have slipped through undetected? And there have been a number of instances where individuals were on the watch list and yet they were released. They were allowed to stay in the United States despite being on the watch list. And no one has any idea how widespread the problem is, nor do we know how many entered undetected. And when you look at the Biden administration, they've been silent on these matters. You combine that with a compliant press, and it leaves us in the dark. Why should Americans have to be in the dark? The press now acts as the public relations wing of the Democratic National Committee. It attempts to shield this administration at all times from their failures. It's state-sponsored media. That's what we got. And the frightening aspect to this is what we've witnessed over the last few weeks. We've seen some bizarre incidents, and this has been going on for several months, but over the last few weeks, most of you probably never even heard about these incidents. And it shows how our press has largely failed. But here at the P.A.S. Report podcast, I'm going to explain these incidents. I'm going to explain that there's something going on, something much bigger than we realize. And unfortunately, it's putting us all at risk. So everyone, hang tight. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. So in this segment, I'm going to dive into a couple of recent incidents that raise serious concerns about our national security and the current state of our immigration policies. And the first incident, it involves two Jordanian nationals who attempted to breach a Marine Corps base in Quantico, Virginia. So let's break down what happened, what we know, what we don't know, and why it matters. On May 3rd, you had two Jordanian nationals apprehended after attempting to breach a Marine Corps base in Quantico, Virginia. The individuals were driving a box truck. They claimed that they were making a delivery to the base's post office. They said that they were working for a company subcontracted by Amazon. However, when the press reached out to Amazon, an Amazon spokesperson denied any affiliation with these individuals, had no record of these individuals, stated that these individuals don't work for Amazon or their subcontractors. And what's going on? One individual entered the United States illegally in April near San Ysidro, California, and he was released on his own recognizance after being ordered to appear before an immigration judge. And this is part of the problem when it comes to what we know. The Biden administration is just cycling these people through the system. They give them a date to appear in court. These people are never going to show up to court, and they're not here for good intentions. Let's be honest about that. You had the other individual entering the United States legally in September of 2022 on an F1 student visa, but he had his status terminated in January of 2023. So you're talking about over a year and a half ago, his student visa was terminated. So both were apprehended at the Quantico Marine Base for trespassing, and they couldn't provide any credentials. Now you have the base's Criminal Investigations Division, along with ICE, that are currently investigating the matter. And these individuals are in custody. You have removal proceedings going on. But why are they in removal proceedings already? I mean, why aren't we investigating this further to find out who these people are, what their intentions were? Do they have any connection to any terrorist organizations? Is there any nexus to terrorism that exists? Again, we need to know, and ICE and the Department of Homeland Security haven't stated whether either man is linked to any threat to public safety or national security. The Department of Homeland Security and the FBI, they have not confirmed if the suspects are on terror watch lists. And why not? Why not? We all have a right to know. Understand, it would literally take a matter of seconds for them to find out and release that information to the press, but they are intentionally hiding this information. And the only reason you would hide something like that is to cover up the administration's failed policies. I see no other good reason to hide information like that. You have the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, a pathetic individual, Alejandro Mayorkas, who has failed in his duty, who should be removed from office. He's under new fresh scrutiny, but what does it matter? Right? I mean, congressional leaders demanding explanations, they're demanding briefings about this incident, and you talk about Mayorkas, he's an incompetent buffoon, but it seems that's all we get, right? We get the never-ending investigation after investigation, hearing after hearing. The administration refuses to turn over information. The questions aren't answered directly. No one is ever held accountable. So why am I supposed to have faith that we're going to get answers this time? Because we're not. That's the real answer. We are not going to get any specifics. This administration obfuscates, they hide their failures, and unfortunately it harms each and every one of us. And there are so many unanswered questions in this. We don't know whether the individuals are linked to terrorist organizations. We don't know about whether they were on the government's radar and the full extent of their activities in the United States. We don't know why one of the suspects had their F1 student visa terminated. Now, usually, when it comes to student visas, if people are staying here illegally, they just let their visa expire and remain in the United States. But this is different. The visa didn't expire. It was terminated. And the question was, why was it terminated? Did he stop attending school? Was he taking too many online classes? What was the reason for the termination? Also, his visa was terminated in January of 2023. Now, according to the State Department and ICE, when a visa is terminated, individuals have to leave the country within 15 days. Yet here we are, a year and a half later, and the individual was still in the country. Why? Why wasn't he forced to leave after that 15-day period? We also need to know why we're just learning about this incident now, especially given that the incident occurred on May 3rd. Why did it take nearly 3 weeks for the press to learn and begin reporting about this, and what is the government trying to hide? We don't know how these individuals managed to get so close to a military base without detection, and we don't know the potential security lapses that allowed this to occur. The administration is refusing to answer questions, and they should be held accountable because it matters. It matters. This incident highlights significant concerns regarding the failed border security. We don't have border security. We don't have immigration enforcement. And the fact that one individual crossed illegally and was released, the other individual stayed after a student visa was terminated when they were required to leave within 15 days, it shows the vulnerabilities that this administration has created. It shows the failures within the system and the gaps that are being exploited by those who may be intending to harm our country. We need a stringent vetting process. We need effective oversight, and it's never been more critical because something is going to happen, and that's the scary part. This case is a reminder of the national security risks because of this current administration. This is willing, it's intentional, and they have failed. And the press needs to demand transparency from our government. They need to make sure that our government makes safety and security of all Americans a top priority. But see, the administration and the Democratic Party, unfortunately, they don't care about the safety and security of Americans, or else they would have shut down the border. Not only would they have shut down the border, they'd actually enforce all the laws that we have on the books, whether it's for those illegally here or just American citizens that are just regularly committing crimes. So they don't care about safety and security. That much is clear. And we have another incident that took place. And the next incident I want to discuss is even more concerning and mysterious than the first one, than the one I just described. And I'm going to talk more about that when we get back from this quick break. So everyone hang tight. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. So now I want to explore an even more mysterious and troubled incident that recently occurred in Carthage, North Carolina, and it's not too far from Fort Liberty. Now, most of you never even heard of Fort Liberty. Fort Liberty is formerly known as Fort Bragg. Remember, we had to change the name of all the southern forts because of, the whole Black Lives Matter movement, as if that solved the problem of race relations because you have so many stupid people out there. But this area is home to some of America's most elite special operations forces. The Delta Force is from this area, and the details of this case are raising serious concerns. So this incident took place on May 3rd at 8:15 p.m. Now, that date of May 3rd should raise a red flag, given that the incident I discussed in the prior segment also happened on May 3rd. So, again, is there a nexus to terrorism? Are these two things, are they coincidences that they happened on the same date, or are they related? Now, this incident started with a phone call reporting a suspected trespass on a property. When the local authorities arrived, they found two Chechen men near the property. The men spoke broken English. The situation quickly escalated. You had one man, and I'm not going to pronounce it right, but Ramzan Darev, a 35-year-old man from Chicago, was allegedly taking photographs of children on a property. Now, when he was confronted near a power line in a wooded area, an altercation began, and Darev was shot several times. Now, the shooter was identified as a colonel in the United States military. He may be a special force operator. I don't know. I don't think we have confirmation about that yet. But you have Darev that was taking pictures of a colonel's family, of his children. And this was 250 yards from the road. There was no identification on Darev. A second man, I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name, Mr. Asadlan, I can't pronounce the first name. He was in a vehicle distance away from the incident. He was questioned by authorities, and then he was released. But why was he released? Both men are reportedly in the United States illegally. And interestingly, Darev was working as a subcontractor for a company called Utilities One. Utilities One is a foreign registered company based in New Jersey. At the time of his death, Darev had no utility equipment, no utility clothing, no identification with him, and he was taking photos near the property after sunset. What's going on here? It doesn't make any sense. I see utility workers all the time, and they may be in unmarked vehicles because they're not doing actual construction. They may be, planning the construction phase of something, but they're still in uniform. They still have identification on them. They'll still carry around equipment. So something doesn't smell right here. And then the presence of Utilities One, it adds another layer of intrigue because it's a foreign registered company working on critical parts of our infrastructure, critical infrastructure, the energy sector. This should be concerning given that we're allowing a foreign entity access to our utilities. What's that about? And understand that utility employment is used as a cover by our intelligence agencies for surveillance purposes when they're overseas. Also, Utilities One started in 2016. It was started by a Moldovan national who came to the United States in 2013. When he came to the United States, he worked as a dishwasher operator and he sold ice. Now imagine that. He worked as a dishwasher operator and sold ice. Yet 3 years later, he starts a company that, quote, provides infrastructure solutions for telecommunications, utilities, wireless carriers, and the tech sector. That doesn't make a lot of sense. And he's getting these contracts with other utility companies. Now, all calls and emails to the company have been ignored. The press has tried to reach out. The phone calls go directly to voicemail, which is odd. You would think that this type of business would have landlines. They would have a staff, someone to answer the phones, but it's going directly to voicemail. So something certainly doesn't smell right here. And this incident isn't an isolated one. Nearby, just 18 months ago, you had Moore County, North Carolina, experience an attack on its electrical substations. It left up to 40,000 residents and businesses without power for nearly 2 weeks. So again, is there a connection? This area is home to a lot of special operations families. The attack remains unsolved. We don't know who attacked the electrical substations. Imagine that. I mean, right now you have people 3.5 years following January 6th that are still being arrested and prosecuted, people that were in the Capitol building for literally a few minutes. There was just an arrest a week ago about this. And yet here we are over 18 months later, and we don't know who attacked an electrical substation that left 40,000 residents and businesses without power. I mean, that is a major incident here in the United States. It reminds me of the pipe bombs over at DNC headquarters and the RNC headquarters, where still have no answers about that. No suspects, nothing going on there. Truly stunning. So that attack remains unsolved. And less than 2 weeks before that incident, the FBI did issue a warning. They warned of increased threats to electrical infrastructure. And they said it was from racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists. Now, they tried to imply that the attack would be conducted by a bunch of white supremacists, because obviously they got to play up that narrative of the domestic terror threat. But this is beyond that. Okay, we have the military community that's been on high alert. They're questioning, why would 2 Russian-speaking Chechens be near an elite Army Special Forces residence at 8:15 p.m. on a Friday night? Why were they taking photographs? Why weren't they wearing any uniforms? Why didn't they have any identification? Why didn't they carry any utility equipment with them? But most importantly, why isn't the FBI leading the investigation? The FBI has stated that they have not uncovered evidence of a federal crime, and they're currently not opening any counterintelligence investigation up. But that doesn't make any sense. I mean, they threat tagged parents that complained at school board meetings, looking to target them under the Patriot Act. They targeted traditional Catholics, right? The Richmond product. And the Richmond product wasn't just isolated to Richmond. We know for a fact that traditional Catholics were targeted in California and Oregon, where they said that traditional Catholics, because of their traditional beliefs, may be domestic terrorists. So we saw counterintelligence investigations open up there, but you don't open a counterintelligence investigation when you have 2 Chechen nationals that are in a military area where military forces live that were taking pictures, claiming to work for a utility company, yet we have no evidence that they actually did, and that's not a counterintelligence investigation? They're also here illegally in the United States. I'll reiterate that. So they're illegally here in the United States. And understand, Chechnya is known for Islamic terrorism. They're known for ties to al-Qaeda. It should further raise eyebrows given that Tamerlan Tsarnaev, now you remember that name, you may remember that name, but he was one of the Boston Marathon bombers in 2013. He had Chechen connections. He was a Chechen national. He visited the region of Chechnya. He raised so many concerns about being an Islamic extremist that Russian authorities warned us about Tamerlan Tsarnaev in 2011. Again, are these all coincidences? See, I'm someone that doesn't believe in coincidences. And you have special operations soldiers around the country that have reported experiencing strange interactions in recent years. They say that suspicious surveillance of them and their families has been taking place. You have United States military bases. They become an increasing target of foreign probes. They have seen an uptick of foreigners probing near or on military bases itself. And you have the Admiral Daryl Cordell, warning that these incidents are happening at a clip of 2 to 3 times a week. So what the hell is going on? Where is the Biden administration? More importantly, where is the press? I mean, they're now covering these incidents that I spoke of. But if this is happening at 2 to 3 times a week, why aren't we alerting the public? I mean, whatever happened to see something, say something? That was actually a decent campaign. They should be alerting the public and saying, if you live in any of these areas where these incidents are taking place, that contact authorities, because we need more information. We need to know what's going on. And I want you to take a listen to Admiral Daryl Cordell and what he says.
Our military bases getting penetrated by foreign nationals is happening more and more. You know, this is something we see probably 2 or 3 times a week, where we're stopping these folks at the gate. Typically, we get NCIS involved with those, and we get biometrics when possible. But yes, there's been an uptick in that.
It is clear that we've never been more vulnerable. This administration's failed policies have created a perfect storm of instability and insecurity. And you look at it. You look at our disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan and understand that that's going to go down as the worst foreign policy blunder in the history of the United States, because it not only destabilized that region, but it destabilized the entire international community. It's emboldened our adversaries and enemies worldwide. They are now taking a much more aggressive posture. They have no fear or respect for this administration. You couple the foreign policy failures with the Biden administration's open borders policy, and you see that the threat is real, that we have a direct threat to our national security. We have millions of people entering this country illegally, and with them, the potential for terrorists to infiltrate our country is real. You have incidents like the attempted breach at Marine Corps Base in Quantico and the mysterious shooting near Fort Liberty that highlights how dangerous this is. At the same time, you have a bunch of ignorant, moronic Americans, young Americans on college campuses screaming that an intifada should begin here. And so it's the perfect storm is culminating. You have our government's inability and unwillingness to secure our borders, enforce immigration laws. They want to leave us exposed to the threats. And it's not just about illegal immigration. It's about the real risk to our national security and the safety of all of us, every American citizen. I think that we are at the point where it's not a question of if a terror attack will happen, but when will an attack happen and what is going to be the scale of that attack. FBI Director Christopher Wray, if you've been listening to him, and I am no fan of Wray. I do not like Wray. I don't think he is a good FBI director. I think he is extremely corrupt. But he has been sounding the alarm bells over the last several months about the potential for terrorism here in the United States, that we are in an extremely vulnerable position, that he fears that something is going to happen. So we have to demand better. We have to hold our leaders accountable. We have to insist on policies that prioritize we, the people, the American people, that prioritize stability of our nation, that prioritize security. Our military, our law enforcement, every American citizen deserves nothing less. Now, if you found the content of this episode informative, please leave the P.A.S. report a 5-star rating. Take 30 seconds to write a review on any podcast platform that allows it. Also, if you haven't already, Subscribe and follow the podcast so you never miss an episode, and share this episode with others. We have to keep people informed. Most people have never heard of these two incidents, and they just happened within the last 3 weeks. So we have to keep people informed about the issues that are impacting our great nation and we the people. I want to thank you for joining me, and I'll be back on Monday with another great episode of the P.A.S. Report podcast.
Thank you for listening to the P.A.S. Report. Don't forget to rate, share, and hit that subscribe button. That way you'll never miss an episode. For more exclusive content and updates, visit us at PASreport.com and follow Professor Giordano on all social media platforms at P.A.S. Report.